I shushed Michael to shut up when I saw that my home number was displayed on my mobile. Almost naked, I lay down on the bed in our hotel room. Michael looked at me resentfully. "Dave, honey, I was just about to call you. I went to bed and just wanted to hear your voice again before I fell asleep. How easy it has become to lie. My affair with my boss, Michael, had been going on for 3 months now, even though it was only the 4th time we'd moved out together, and the first time for anything other than quick sex in a motel room. It was the 2nd night of a 4-day work conference 2 states away, and in the evening we had dinner at a posh restaurant, and then we came back and undressed. Me, right down to the black belt on suspenders and stockings. He's ridiculously boxers painted with ladybug. I thought the message I sent to Dave was, "Very tired. I go to bed early. Kiss the children goodnight for me. Will give me some peace for this evening. It hurt me to talk to Dave last night while Michael was doing what he had to do. My husband did not deserve such an attitude on my part, honestly. So today I tried to get out. That's just the conscience. Conscience prevented me from fully enjoying the moment. I've never consciously sought an affair, but the half-drunk first meeting with Michael brought me such deep satisfaction that I just kept coming back for more. This does not mean that the risk of losing my marriage with my fantastic husband and 2 beautiful daughters did not scare the hell out of me, even as a scarecrow, scared to the point of colic, to the point of internal trembling. But I'm a weak woman, and I just couldn't deny myself the pleasure. At the same time, sincerely hoping that the infatuation would soon pass, and promised myself that I would never do it again. But, again, I told myself that after John, and after the floor, and after Ian, the amount of wine I drank at dinner, Michael's mischief, and memories of Dave's skills created a surreal combination. This, combined with the roar of blood in my ears, made me think about what Dave had just asked me. Thinking quickly, I assumed he was asking about my day, as usual. Dave, let's not talk about my boring conference. Let's talk about what I'm going to do to you when I get home on Friday." Dave's response made me drop the phone like a hot potato and rush to the edge of the bed to sit up straight. Burning pain flared up. I screamed loudly. At the same time as I screamed, Michael yelped and rubbed his face, which now bore a deep scratch, the mark from the hook of my suspender belt, whimpering and cupping my throbbing crotch with my palm. I reached for the phone again, but I heard the disconnect signal even before it reached my ear. I pressed the speed dial button 1, but received only a connection signal. 2 more attempts caused the same failure. Michael was confused. "What did this loser tell you?" Take a deep breath and take a sip. When I said I was going to shake his world when I got home on Friday, he asked, "Are you horny, baby? Did Michael leave you unsatisfied last night?" I almost howled. He knows, Michael. Dave knows about us. I need to go home. Ignoring the pain, I dressed quickly, threw my clothes into the suitcase, and headed for the door. "Cindy, do you think your husband knows who my wife is?" Michael asked in an excited voice, without even looking at the selfish jerk. I ignored his plaintive question and rushed to the lobby, where the night porter called me and then I sat at Brisbane Airport from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. Constant calls to the home phone returned only the call signals. Dave's cell phone was no better. There I went straight to voicemail. I left Melbourne Airport at 7:30 am and caught a $150 taxi to our country house. I expected it to be empty because of the kids at school and Dave at work, but when I opened the door, the house seemed more than just empty. It looked abandoned. A terrible but quick examination showed what I was afraid of. A lot of Dave's and the girls' stuff is missing. I screamed in despair at my situation. Knowing that all this doomsday was the result of my stupidity did not lessen the gravity of the situation. Desperate for cheerfulness, I brewed myself a strong coffee. A lack of sleep for more than a day, the almost sleepless previous night, and being awake in flight from heavy thoughts. So, where will Dave go anyway? It took me an hour to remember. Our phones have apps loaded to search for a partner's phone. It took another hour to figure out how to use it. But she still showed me Dave's cell phone and the direction north on the Hume Highway. I should have guessed right away. In moments of stress, Dave always went to his sister, his only living relative. She lived in Albury, which we got to via Hume. Running out of the house and taking nothing with me except the luggage I had in Brisbane, a 4-hour drive towards Albury turned into a nightmare. The roads are boring, and I tried my best not to fall asleep. But I just knew that the sooner I got to Dave, the better the chances that my wonderful marriage would survive. A wonderful marriage. Why am I only thinking about it now? I didn't sleep and kept calling Dave's cell phone. I've been puzzling over what I know about the divorce, but I knew that the law favored women to get custody of any children, and that even the presumption of shared care returned to the fact that the husband was allowed access to children irregularly. Dave lived for our children. He would never have agreed to this. If necessary, I can use it against him. If my pleas do not help, I managed to stay awake until I parked at my sister-in-law's cottage. The house was empty and quiet. They probably anticipated my pursuit and fled. I decided to sit in the car and wait for them to return. I must have dozed off for a couple of hours, since it was already late in the evening when I woke up. A short nap did me some good. I kicked myself for not doing the obvious by using the Find Phone feature again. Dave's phone was now entering the outer suburbs of Sydney. Without much thought, I gave chase. A near-death state of complete exhaustion forced me to stay in a motel in the town of Yass. Before I collapsed on the bed, I checked where Dave was. The phone was identified in the Talisman area in Sydney. What is he doing in Talisman? There are no acquaintances or relatives there. No one I can remember. I woke up a little after 4 in the morning and thought I could wake Dave up when he was sleepy to reject my call. I dialed his mobile number immediately to voicemail. Dave, what are you doing? I gritted my teeth in frustration and headed north again. By 8, I was already on the outskirts of Sydney and decided to be smart. I stopped and looked where my husband was now. Phew, he's still in the Talisman. I put the Talisman in my sat-nav and hit the road. Do you know what the traffic is like in Sydney on the Thursday before the long weekend? One word is a nightmare. When I finally got to the Talisman, my car was running on the last drops of gasoline. To be honest, I also held on only by willpower. A fleeting snack at a roadside diner is simply not enough to withstand such stress as I have. Pulling over to the side of the road, I decided to take another look at exactly where Dave. According to the testimony, he was 50 kilometers east of Sydney. How can this be? All there is the Tasman Sea. When I looked closer, I saw that its height is 6,000 meters and its speed is more than 500 kilometers per hour. That bastard was on the plane. I watched as the trail turned north and disappeared. Dave and my kids were on a plane going nowhere. Well, Dave, hubby, I decided to move on, but I was confused, not knowing what to do now. When I saw the signs for the hotel at the airport, I slowed down. Paying for a room even for one night dealt a serious blow to the funds available on my credit card. So, in the relative serenity of my room, I reproached myself for not checking at home whether the children's passports were in the safe. I just stared at my phone and was thrilled when, sometime later, the locator suddenly showed that Dave was 10,000 meters above Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea. Of course, Dave wouldn't take the kids to such a dangerous place. However, it got me thinking, how long has Dave been preparing for this? If he knows the divorce laws as well as I do, can he run away with the kids to a place where I can't find them? Of course not. He's not that stupid. He understands that I will find him anyway, even if he hides at the end of the world. I must have dozed off for a while, because when I woke up, I found that Dave was in Bangkok. However, I wasn't going to make the same mistake again, and decided to keep an eye on him to make sure he wasn't transiting somewhere else. It was a long night, at the end of which Dave was still in Thailand. Now my problem was how to get from Sydney to Thailand when my son was lying at home in Melbourne. Trying to book a plane ticket home showed that my credit card was exhausted. I jumped on the internet, and after a few clicks I discovered that all but $2,000 had disappeared from all accounts that I could access. It definitely looked like my smart husband had made his feet and left me without any resources to find him. But why would he want to leave something to me? His sense of fair play. The remaining drop of love for me. I stopped understanding. I transferred the money to a credit card and bought the cheapest flight ticket from Sydney to Melbourne. I threw the car to hell in the parking lot at the airport. My children were more important to me. The budget airline canceled the first 2 flights that could have taken me my passport. Why didn't I think to take him with me right away? I was hoping that Dave and the girls would stay in Thailand for a fun weekend. Otherwise, I would be so damn unhappy. The money was running out catastrophically. I returned home after another exorbitantly expensive taxi ride. I made sure that Dave hadn't moved anywhere yet and called the travel agency I usually used. The next morning, I got an accelerated place in a freight class transporting cattle to Thailand. She confirmed that I don't need a visa. A trip to the safe for a passport confirmed that my children's passport. I just gritted my teeth. Right. Watch out, Dave. I'm coming. Since the flight was at 8 a.m. and I didn't have a car, I ordered a taxi for 4 a.m. and went to pack my things. When the sky was still pitch black, I woke up quite alarmed. Well, at least I got some sleep. Stress grew on stress when I went to get my little travel suitcase, and the handle broke off. The taxi driver fumed while I quickly stuffed all my gear into the only other suitcase of the same size that I had. That morning flights, as if for evil, were popular. I barely made my way through a long queue at check-in and customs to get to the waiting room. Just in time, after getting into the cattle truck, I checked. Dave was still in Bangkok until the hostess of the flight growled at me to turn off the phone. As soon as we took off, I used the plane's internet to enable international roaming on my phone. The hours dragged on. I got off the aerobridge and walked along the row of windows outside, trying not to think about how dangerously small my funds were, but calmly confident that I can, if not persuade, then intimidate. Impatiently, I turned on the find phone function on my phone, and it immediately beeped. Dave was only 346 meters away from me, directly to the east. Running to the nearest window, I found myself looking in exactly the right direction. My blood froze in my veins when I looked at the indicated course. There was only one building in the right place, and at about the right distance. There was a huge logo of an international courier company on it. And my brain has made connections. Now Dave's plan was obvious. He sent his switched-on phone with a power bank through a courier service to where his wayward but stupid wife would follow. Suddenly, Dave's goal of leaving me a small amount of money made sense. He wanted me to be able to go that far, but two things struck me. Firstly, that Dave knew me well enough to know that I would immediately give chase. And secondly, Dave really wasn't in the mood to forgive, but it's some kind of stupid revenge to throw me on the other side of the world. What's the point? He doesn't think I'll get lost and end up on a desert island. Having no other way out, I continued my way to the customs office. Now I'm going to buy a return flight ticket to get out of here and sit at the airport until it's time to go home. What other choice did I have? No. I didn't have the money to stay anywhere, and I might have to walk home from Melbourne Airport. It dawned on me. I called Michael. He answered after a few weary seconds. I was ashamed to ask him, but there was no way out. Mike, could you transfer some money to my card for me? No, he said shortly, and hung up. Everyone betrayed me. That's it? I stood at the end of the queue at Thai Customs. I've been exhausted from the chase for the last 2 days. The lower back was tied in a knot. The stomach did not know whether it wanted to be empty or to be full. And then I noticed 2 heavily armed policemen walking slowly along the queue. They were constantly looking at some photo, and then carefully at each woman. Their faces lit up with joy when they saw me. Dave Brown tiptoed out of the bedroom, where his 2 charming daughters had finally fallen asleep, sat down in a comfortable old armchair and poured himself some whiskey. He wasn't used to being alone, and couldn't decide whether to watch an old movie or read a book. It was a relaxing couple of days at a local resort with his work partner Bill, with Bill's wife Nancy, and with their son. This boy was about the same age as he. The only concern these days was to keep an eye on the 2 girls enjoying the pools, water park, ice cream, and other amenities. Arriving home at 2 a.m, when Bill was carrying the sleeping girls to their bedrooms, took its toll, and he doubted that he would last long reading or watching a movie. His thoughts were interrupted by the ringing of his home phone. Dave Brown here. Hello, my name is Jack Bloodstone. I'm from the Australian consulate in Bangkok. I'm calling about your wife, Cindy Brown. Dave interrupted him before Jack could explain the reason for his call. You see, Cindy Brown is still officially my wife, but we broke up, Mr. Bloodstone. If she has any problems, I don't feel obligated to help her with anything. Are you aware, Mr. Brown, of your ex-wife's money problems? Yes, it would be correct to say that she had money problems after leaving for another man. Wait, are you calling from Bangkok? Well, it's a sad story. Do you think she is so desperate for money to act as a courier? That is, to transport half a kilo of substances? I don't know. My ex-wife, she is somewhat unpredictable. Everything can be. Perhaps she knows people who could give her half a kilo of marijuana. I recently found out that she was hanging out with all sorts of dubious types with a dark past. So you said Thailand? Yes, Mr. Brown, of course. If she is found guilty, she will face 15 years in a Thai prison, which I can assure you is not at all like an Australian one. 15 years. Oh my God, that's very bad, isn't it? My God, she's completely... The Australian government will provide her with a lawyer if she cannot pay for it herself. Yes, I suppose she will have to rely on a legal advisor provided by the government. Or if you want, I can give you some phone numbers of her family. So, I'll clarify. Aren't you going to help your wife? No, I'm not going to. It's a pity, of course, for a woman. But, as I said, we broke up. I have a request. Please keep me informed. It will be necessary to say something to our daughter. As you wish, Mr. Brown. I'll write you an email. Could you please provide the phone numbers of her family, as you suggested earlier? Dave dictated the phone numbers of Cindy's parents and her sister. I'll be waiting for your call. My cell phone number. I'll be in touch, Mr. Brown. Good. Goodbye. Dave hung up the phone and leaned back in his chair. Something pricked his leg. He reached out and took 3 screws out of his pocket. Such nickel-plated screws were usually used to attach handles to a suitcase. He put them on the table next to the chair and smiled. Oh, the agony of choice, Dave thought. Send photos to Michael's wife now. Or postpone it until tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a day. There will be a fresh head and everything will be photographed. As soon as Cindy is convicted, he will think about sending her some reading material. For example, her diaries, which he found. He first looked at them when Cindy was unpacking the things they had taken from her mother's house after the funeral. Cindy acted like she didn't want Dave to know they existed. She grabbed her notebooks and ran into the bedroom. When she returned, she irritably reprimanded him about how it was not good to read other people's notes. This behavior caused alarm. If she had been calm, he wouldn't have thought of them. He had to admit that she hid them well. It took him 2 weeks of searching to reading her barely disguised hints about the first 3 novels. Dave knew that she would get lost again, and he would be able to get absolute proof, not only for himself, but also for his daughters. He knew that in the coming years he would need both, so that his daughters would understand and forgive him for what he was going to do. It's funny how trust can make you blind, because as soon as he started looking for signs of her infidelity, he found them almost immediately. The rest, as they say, is a matter of technique. Taking a glass, he sipped the alcohol and a couple of tears rolled down his cheeks. Dave, in spite of everything, he had difficulty coming up with a plan for his revenge. The difficulty was not in the organizational details. It was just that simple. He knew Sydney as well as he knew himself, and could predict her actions in a given situation with 100% probability. The difficulty lay in his shower condition. He couldn't physically do that to her, and he constantly had to remind himself what awaits him in the case of an ordinary divorce: loss of home, money, comfort, and most importantly, the loss of his girls. And what good can children get if their mother starts openly jumping from bed to bed, at the same time risking both their health and the well-being of their daughter? What lesson will she teach them by her behavior? How will her changing fans treat the girls? These thoughts decided the fate of his wife. Dave raised his glass and held it up to the photograph of him and Cindy on their wedding day, which was displayed in a place of honor above the fireplace. I'm sorry, dear, but you deserve it.